In this video, we're going to talk about looping or repetition structures. It'll be the first of two videos on this topic. Okay. So I think we've already seen the need for repetition, right? In the example that we did, where we had three employees, we needed to enter data for them, write it to a file, read it back. We had to copy and paste everything, all those instructions three times in order to get it to work. Okay, so it just makes sense. And one of the real powers of the computer is that it can do things over and over and over very quickly. Okay, so looping's important. Okay, so to review where we've been, this is really the last big piece that we need in order to make useful programs. So we have variables, we have the selection structures, and now we have looping. So this is really what's missing. Okay. The next thing we'll be doing will be functions, which just add to it, but this is really what we need. Okay. So as far as loops, there are several kinds of loops that you can have. I'm currently in an editor window here in Emacs, but it's not really going to code. I just want you to be able to see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so the kinds of loops we have. The first type, let me get in the right window, is called a counter controlled loop. With a counter controlled loop, you know exactly how many times you want the loop to operate. Okay, so I want to print out a number 10. I want to print out 10 numbers. I want to, print out the first 10 squares, whatever, the first 100 of this or whatever. Okay, so a counter controlled loop is when you know how many times you're going to do it. Okay, the second type of loop is called a sentinel controlled loop. A sentinel, sometimes called a condition controlled loop. Okay, so a sentinel in the army, someone who stands guard. So these are also we talk about a guard condition, and these are loops that are going to continue until something changes, right? It could be that the user enters, it could be a pick a number game, which we'll look at in a minute. Pick a number. Do you want to guess again or do you want to stop? Do you want to keep going? Okay, so or it could be on a search. You have a list of numbers. You're going to go through looking for a certain number. You stop either, when you find the number or when you're at the end. Okay, so you don't know how many times it's going to work. It may be once, it may be none. Doesn't have to work. It may be 100 million times. Doesn't matter. Okay. And then the third type is similar and works in kind of the same way. And that's going to be a flag controlled loop. So a flag controlled loop is going to use some Boolean variable. So remember, a Boolean variable can be either true or false. It's going to use that as its as the condition for it to stop. Okay, so we'll see examples of that as we go along. Okay, then the last kind, of loop is something that we certainly could use already, and that's going to be an EOF or end of file loop. Okay, and that allows you to go through an entire file and stop when the file's done. And we'll see an example of that as well. Okay. So as far as the structures we're going to talk about, okay, the first one we're going to cover today is the while loop. The while loop works pretty much like it does in Python. Okay, so that's good news. It has a little bit of different syntax, just like the ifs have, and it's similar to the if in that sense. But other than that, it's the same idea. Okay, and the good news about whiles, I guess, is that you can use them as your only repetition structure. Okay. So they can do all four types without any problem. It turns out that some things are more efficiently done other ways. Okay. So that's why we have a for loop. The for loop is much different than it is in Python. In Python, a for loop is more like an iterator. Here it's a counting loop. Okay. So we'll talk about counting loops today. Those are usually more efficiently done in for loops. Okay. There's also a do while loop, which is it's like a while loop, but you test at the bottom. And we'll talk about that next video as well. Although I practically speaking, don't tend to use do whiles hardly ever. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with the syntax of a while loop. Okay. So a while loop is going to look again, similar to that they do in Python. Okay, but in C++, notice I'm in my int main. I'm including the IO stream and the F stream for my file example later. Okay. So the first type we're going to do here is the count controlled loop. Okay. So let's say we're going to loop through and print the first 10 squares. One times, one squared, two squared, all the way up. Okay. So we start with a while, or we're going to get to a while. We're going to have a while some condition. Okay. So before we have our condition, so I guess the first thing we have to do, as always, is to declare our variables. Okay. Left the R out, but you get the idea. Okay. So the variables we're going to need a counter variable that we're going to set equal to 0. Okay. So we're going to count through the loop until the counter gets some value. Okay. And we're also going to need, we can in fact set a value here if you want. So sometimes we'll do like an int n equals 10, let's say. That's going to be our how many times to count. You don't always do that. Sometimes you just hard code that. Okay. And we're also going to need a variable for the number we get from the loop. Okay. So we can just, no, we're going to use counter for that. Never mind. We don't need that. Okay. We're good. Okay. So now that I've got that, I can go to my while loop. And in parentheses here, I'm going to put it's going to be a Boolean expression. It's going to return true or false, just like on the if. Okay. I'm going to do a simple one here, but it doesn't matter. I can go ahead and put in ands and ors and all those complicated things, whatever you want to do, but it has to evaluate to true or false. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to say y counter is less than n. Okay. So my counter is equal to 0, n is less than 10. So this will go from 0 to 9. Okay. And if that's not what I want, and let's think about that. And this one I probably don't. And this one I probably want to start with 1. Okay. If that's the case, then I have to put this while the counter is less than or equal to. That should be what I need. Okay. So inside of this, the counter first has the value of 1 and then 2 and so forth. Okay. So I'm just going to see out. I'm going to put in the number, okay, the counter. And then I'm going to put in a tab character. Those can be single quotes because it's a single character. Okay. Then I'm going to put in the counter times the counter. And then line. Okay. Now, very importantly, if we don't want an infinite loop, I have to increase the counter. Okay. I have to move it toward the end. If not, it's just going to go on forever. Okay. So I'm going to say counter plus plus. Okay. So that should do it, right? It's going to set the initial counter equal to 1, the number of times equal to 10. And then as long as the counter is less than or equal to 10, we're going to be fine. It's going to print out the counter. It's going to do a tab, print out the counter squared, and then it's going to go to the next value. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to take the easy way out and just take it to an A dot out. Doesn't like something. On line 2021. Let's see. Oh, I have a random while down here that I started and didn't finish. What that was about. Okay. So run this again. And there we go. And this is working correctly, right? It's going from 1 to 10, and these numbers are in fact the squares. Okay. So pretty straightforward. Again, if we did not put in, what are we doing? Oh, knocked off the P. If we did not have this incrementer here, we can see what happens. Go to compile it. It's okay. It didn't give us an error, but it's going to run forever and ever and ever. A control C will stop it. Okay. It runs forever and ever, but it never gets to any other numbers. Okay. So that's the basics of a while loop that's counter controlled. Okay. So we also have these sentinel controlled values. Okay. So it could be something like you're going to ask the user for a number. Let's say you're going to sum up some numbers. Okay. And we're going to have the user enter, say, a -99 to quit. Okay. So in this case, we're looking for the counter not equal, okay, to -99. Okay. And in fact, if you wanted, you could declare a sentinel value, capital S, -99. And here's the case I would probably make that a constant integer S, okay? My sentinel. Could put that S, not equal to S in there. Okay. So this time we don't know how many times it's going to do anything. Okay. So this is our sentinel value. Okay. We don't have a counter. We have the sentinel value that's originally -99. Okay. In this case, we're going to sum some numbers. So I'm going to int sum equals 0 to get us started there. Okay. This time I'm going to cout, enter a number. And it should be an integer, but I'm not going to test them yet. Okay. Then cn to an n, which I haven't done yet. So let me go back up here. It's not uncommon to have to add variables as you go. Again, I would not want to add the declaration of the variable inside of this loop. That would give an error because we try to do it every time. I could do it some other place. And I see some of you declaring variables in the middle of your code when you need it. You're better off declaring them all in at the very beginning. I think that's cleaner code and it'll lead to fewer errors. Okay. So I'm going to get the n. I'm not going to counter plus plus. I don't have a counter. Okay. So now I'm going to let sum be equal to sum plus that new n that was input. Okay. So and I don't want, okay, so I want a different variable here. I need, that's my sentinel value. I don't want a counter. Let's call it something else. What do you want to call it? No, it doesn't matter. We could call, because it's our sentinel, it's a little sentinel. Let's call it sent. That makes sense. Okay. So my sent there. Okay. So while that is not equal to S, no, that's not what I want. I'm losing my mind. N is what I want to use. I can use N. Okay, so it's while N is not equal to 99, because N is what they're entering. Yep. Now I'm back in the game. So I have to set this to something. If I don't set it to, if I just set it to nothing, then when I got to the while loop, it would never get in the loop. Okay. So therefore I have to set this initial value. I get into the loop the first time. I ask the user for a number. It's set to n. I let sum be sum plus n, and then I'm going to ask them for the number again. Okay. So when I ask them, so this is what keeps it from being an infinite loop. Whenever I want, and you want to let people know here what we're doing. So you could say -99 to end. Okay. And then we're okay. We're able to go from that. And that should be good. Okay. And at the end, we can just cout. So we're not making these pretty. We're trying to make the video shorter rather than longer. Oh, need to put semicolon there. Okay. Run this. Okay. Enter a number. If I enter 3, 4, 5, 6, and -99, it prints out something incorrect. Okay, so let's see what it's doing. Oh, I know what it's doing. Okay, do you see what's going on here? What's going on here is that the last time we hit -99, it's adding that number first. Okay. Which means what I think I can do, I think I can move this addition to before. Okay. Since the first time it's 0, it's not going to matter. Okay. And that will keep that from adding the negative 99 to my number. Okay. I don't know why it's printing it twice. Oh, just because I that's when I put it on the screen. Okay. This should fix that. The other thing you could do is that you could protect this sum with an if. Okay. But I think this is going to work. So let's try this. Okay. So let me compile it again. Okay. And we're okay. So I'm then going to run through here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it should be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Do a negative 99 and it prints a 10. Okay, so this is working correctly. Okay. So again, the other thing I could have done, I could have left it down here, which is a little bit more code. So let's go ahead and do that. If I would have left it the way I had it, I would have to protect this with an if. Okay, say if n is not equal to s, then I can go ahead and do this. This would work as well. Okay. So that's the basic idea. Okay. And it's often the case, although it's not good code, it's what does tend to happen, that people will just hard code this in as a negative 99. That's okay too. Okay. So a similar thing that we can do here is through what's called a flag controlled loop. Okay. So a flag controlled loop is going to use a Boolean variable. Okay. So let's get rid of some of this stuff here. We don't have this anymore. We could still use that. Okay, so I'm gonna have a Boolean, let's call it done. Okay, we're gonna set it equal to false to begin with. Okay. So I can still have them enter a number, but I want something different here. I want to say while not done. Okay. I could say if I wanted while done is not equal to true, but I don't need to. I can just say not done. Done is either true or false. Not done. That's the wrong way to go. Not done is going to be when it's false. Okay. So after I do this, I'm not going to have this problem anymore. Okay. So I can go ahead and take these guys out. Okay. So I'm asking for a number. Going to get rid of this sentinel condition here. Okay. I'm going to do the sum. Then I'm going to say continue. Question mark. Y or N. Okay. So that means I'm going to need a string here. Choice. Okay. Then I can say if choice is equal to n, it's the only one I care about. Okay. Then I'm going to change the value of done. It's going to become true. Okay. And that should do it, right? So let's read how this is going to happen. Make sure I've got it right here. So I'm setting up my done to be false because we're not done yet. My sum is 0, my n, which is what I'm going to be entering. Then I've got the string for here for choice. Okay. I'm going to, while not done. Okay. So while this is false. So if done is true, not done is false. Okay. But if not done is false, which it is there, then done is true. So done is no, sorry, got that backwards. I want the condition here, I want this to be is if it's true, we stop. Okay. But in this case, it's going to be not done. Okay. So while it's false, we continue. When it's true, we stop. Okay. So I'm going to enter a number. I'm going to get the number from the user, add it to the sum. Do you want to continue? It's going to pop up on the screen. Okay. Yes or no. If they say no, they don't want to continue, I'm going to set done to true. So I'm going to come down to the loop and come up here. This will be false. Then I'll be out of the loop. Okay. So that's what a flag looks like. Okay. And it's sometimes helpful. If you notice in Emacs, which is the editor I'm using here, when I type in this last curly bracket, it highlights briefly where it comes to, but we're going to get to the point where it's not a bad idea to have some comments there. Okay. So let's try this one, see if it works. No, I've done something awful. So what have I done? Let me see. It looks like it's an error going the wrong way, maybe? I'm not CNing. That's the issue. Need to CN choice. Is that what I need? Does that fix it? We'll see. Nope, so then like something else. That looks for all the world like the thousands of errors you get when you've got the arrows or the operator going the wrong way. So where does it first have an issue? Doesn't like this one. It doesn't like the equal equal. Oh, because that's a string. That's the issue. Okay, I see the issue now. Okay. Choice is a string, so I have to test it as a string. It does what the problem was. Yeah, no, it's okay. Okay. Enter number 2, continue, yes. Enter number 3, continue, no. Now it's done. And this is ugly, but you get the idea. Okay. One thing, some of you are losing points on this. On this continue, I'm running these together. That's not good. That's a -1 at least. Okay. And I'll say something like bad style. Oh, I've lost where I'm at. Okay. So let's take a look how we fix that. Here, when you ask somebody to enter something, I did it there, but I didn't do it here. You're going to want to put at least a space, and usually a colon space. Okay. If not, it's not pretty. Okay. So just to explain the other error, because this is kind of hard to read, I had single quotes here. And I was asking the compiler to compare a string to a char, and it can't do that. And that's why it gave me all those error messages. Okay. So that's what is going to happen if we have a flag controlled loop, and we'll see flags a lot. Okay. So for the last example here, we're going to do, we'll do a quick example, and then we'll do the number guessing game to put it all together somewhat. Okay. So in this one, I'm going to do the EOF controlled loop. So it's going to take, we've just got a file here. So I'm doing Emacs input data dot dat. Name the file. Let's say hello. That's it. That's all the file has. Okay. So now I'm going to go back into my loop program here. Okay. And I've already included the F string for this. When I'm declaring my variables, okay, I'm going to need an IF stream called infile. We need a char here for C, H. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to read out the letters, print them, and we're done. Okay, that's it. That's all we're doing. Okay. So I now, of course, need to open my file. So infile.open. Call it input data.dat. Okay. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and go down to the end. I'm going to close it in file.close, just so I won't forget. Okay. Most of this is gone, so let me just go to here, Control K it all. Okay. So we have our file open, we have our character variable ch, which we're going to use. Okay. And in this case, we're going to be testing to see if we're not at in-file has a function called EOF, which sees if we're at the end of the file. Okay. We have to do our first read. We're going to do a get, which returns just a single character from the file. We're going to do our first get here. If not, this is not going to work properly. Okay. It won't be at the end of the file. Okay. We're going to read the first character. We're going to see where we're at there. Okay. And then we're going to go into the loop. Okay. If we're at the end of the file to begin with, we're never going to make it into the loop. Okay. So I'm going to start by just outing that character. That's it. Okay. And then I'm going to do an infile.get character again. Okay. If I didn't do this, again, I would have an infinite loop. Okay. So this is going to open up this file, which just says the word hello. It's going to get the H. H is not in the file. It's going to print H. Going to get the E, the L, the L, the O. Then it's going to be done. Okay. Not a super useful thing, but let's see if we can get through it with no errors. Nope, we got some error. Yeah, I did not put somewhere. There we go. That's not a bad error if that's all we got. Okay, is it going to work? It does. It's ugly, but it does say HELLO. Okay. I could put a new line character to fix that up. Okay. So the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to create a guess which number. Okay. So again, guess which number game. Okay, and I'm going to include the IO stream. I don't need any files. I don't need IO manip, I don't think. So I'll be using namespace standard, my main, at my return 0. Okay. Then in this case, when I'm defining my variables, okay, we're basically going to have an integer for the answer to guess which number. And we can go ahead and set it because if this were a real game, you want to do a random number, but we don't really have that ability yet, so we won't worry about that. We'll make it random numbers next chapter. I'm not sure. Okay. And then I'm going to have another for guess. Okay. So I'm then going to basically loop through until they get the answer. Okay. So for this to work, my while loop is basically going to be while guess is not equal to answer. Okay. So as long as that's true, we're going to keep looping. Okay. Okay. So inside of here, this first time through, guess doesn't have a value. Okay. So sometimes that's going to be a problem. It's just hard to say. We could default a value here if you want, or we could just ask the user before we start. Okay. So on our, we could either say int guess is equal to -99. We know it's not going to be that number ever. That gets us down into here and we're fine. Okay. Then I'm going to have a cout, enter your guess. Ideally, I would have something that tells users they're in this game. Don't put an $X, we're going to cin. Okay. I'm then going to cin the guess. Okay. And to make this a little more realistic for the users, let's go through and tell them if it's tell user if too high or too low. Okay. So the first case here, we're going to say if answer or guess is equal to answer, If that's true, okay, um, we're not really going to do anything, right? Because so I don't want to do that because that just means that we're done. Okay, so we're going to say if guess, if we were using a sentinel, we would have that. If guess is greater than the answer, I've guessed something too big. Okay, I'm going to see out that too high. Okay. I could actually, let's start with, I can do something. A winner. Okay. And then when it comes out of here, it's going to go around and ask them for a guess again. Okay. Oh, actually, since guess is the answer, it will stop the next time through. Okay. But if it's not, we can do an else if guess is greater than the answer. We were doing before. In this case, we're going to see out too high. I have those not reversed in my mind. Okay, and we do an L. We can do an else here, but else's are sometimes a little tricky in that it could cover more than we think. If the guess is less than the answer, okay, then I want to see out too low. Okay, so we avoid the infinite loop because inside of our while, we're asking them for the guess again and again and again. Okay, let's see if this works. So, this one. Oh, the next one of those in line 30. Yep. Actually, missing my indel is what the issue was there. Okay, do that. Okay, we're okay. Okay, enter the guess. If I enter a 4, it tells me it's too low. If I enter a 44, it tells me it's too high. If I enter a 12, boom, we're done. And we're out of the program. Okay. Um, Another thing that you could do here, if you wanted to combine some things, we could also have a continue or a done or whatever. So we do a Boolean variable called done equal to false. Okay. And then after they've guessed, so when we're right here in the code, we've said too high or too low, but we haven't looped around again. Okay. We can say see out, continue, y or n. And do a cn on done. Okay. So now when we get to the top, we want to say while the guess is not equal to the answer and not done. Okay. So both of those have to be true. Okay. And some of you have figured out, even though the book doesn't say it, you can type the word and if you want. On our compiler, that works. The double ampersands are guaranteed always to C++. Though. Okay. So let's see if I've got this implemented correctly. I've lost my way somewhere. Okay, enter my guess. 3. Too low. Continue. No. Oh, infinite loop. Let's see what I've done. And it happened with this. Okay, so I'm coming down. I'm saying continue, yes or no. I'm getting done. Enter. Why is it not stopping for me to enter the guess? It's very interesting. Because this CN guess should work. It works the first time. Not sure why it's not coming back out. Oh, because I think my issue, yeah, this should be outside of the loop, right? No, it's got to be inside the loop. This has to stay inside the loop. I'm getting my done here. So I'm coming back to here. So I've gone through the first time. And let's see if it's only when I say, let's test a little bit more here. If I enter 4, if I enter a yes, it continues. Oh, that's what's trouble. Okay. Doesn't work either way. Let's see. Enter 4, no. Okay. It does that either way. Okay. Let's see what we're doing here. So no matter what I guess here, so I've got if answer, let's take this out here just to see if we've got some other thing we've added in here. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time debugging this because this part doesn't really matter that much. Okay, still, there's something else it's doing weird. It doesn't matter. So we know that's not the issue. Okay. So by adding this in here, it's just asking them over and over. Did it ask them their guess again? Enter your guess. It's not allowing them to do that for whatever reason, which is quite strange. So it's saying that, oh, there must be something. It's weird. It looks like the CN buffer is not clearing itself out. I mean, so I'm not 100% sure what's happening with that one. So I'm not going to waste any more video time doing that. Okay. But that in theory should work. I know I'm just doing something stupid on it anyway. But that's basically how the whiles are going to work. Okay. So in the next video, we'll talk about other ways to loop, but you can do any kind of loop that you want. So again, if you know how many you're going to do, you do a counter control loop. If you're going to loop some condition, you do a sentinel control loop. We can also use a flag for a loop. Okay. And we can also use looping when we're dealing with end of files. Okay. Okay, I decided I didn't want to leave that on a point that wasn't good. So I had to think about that a little bit, stop the video and start again. Okay, so the issue here is that what I'm doing here is entering a string, but I'm trying to call it a Boolean value. Okay, so that's what becomes the trouble here. Where's my cursor? There's my cursor. Okay. I can't input a Boolean in that way. So if I call this a string, okay, then that's going to be okay. And I could say, well, guess is not equal to answer, and um, done equals yes. May as well. Let's try that. Nope, doesn't look something. Oh, because I'm doing something weird on line 11. Oh, because I didn't fix that. So I want to start off done being, yeah, I want done to be no, and done does not equal yes. There we go. Okay, enter a guess, continue, yes. Okay, yeah, still got it reversed. See if I did get it 100% reversed. 4, no, yes, it's reversed. Okay. Those are hard to keep straight in your mind. Now it's doing nothing. Okay. It's doing nothing because that's never true. Oh, because I just said this. Okay. Let's figure this out again. So we're saying while the guess is not equal to the answer, while done should be equal to no. That should be what I had wrong. That was what was wrong, not the other thing. Should be okay there. Still quitting. It'll be one of those days. Okay, so this has to be true for the list to continue. Okay. So, oh, it's because my whole problem in all this, I should have called this continue. By not calling it continue, I'm confusing myself. It's not done, it's continue, it's just the opposite. Continue. Is that a keyword? That's a keyword. So let's just call it C is okay. Continue. Okay. And while C is equal to yes, we want to continue. Okay. And this has to be a yes to begin with because we want to continue. That's what was throwing me off. I think. We'll see. May still be wrong. It does happen. Enter your guess. Continue. Yes. Now we got it right. Well, let's be do a no as well. No, and there we go. That was it. Okay, so sorry for all that confusion, but I think that in the videos by doing them live and by not doing the programs in advance, you get to see the errors I make and you get to see me how I deal with them. Okay. So the problem before we can't input a Boolean. We would have to enter it as true or false, and it just doesn't work very well. Okay. I was trying to do a yes or no and turn that to a Boolean. I could have another variable in a loop if I wanted to do a flag, but it didn't really matter. Okay. So in this case, the point was I wanted to add this multiple condition. Okay. My second error was calling the variable done, but asking if they wanted to continue, and those are the opposite. Okay. You continue with a yes, you're done with a no. Okay. So that was the issue there. Okay. So that should be working now. So hopefully that all makes some sense. If not, make sure that you ask questions.